Tanner's Bar and Grill, Tavern 180, Elway Power Sports of Lincoln, Vinnie Kreekak of State Farm Insurance, and Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. 93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Sponsored by John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
Your Lincoln forecast for today, we'll see lots of sunshine, and it will be breezy. An afternoon high around 63. Tonight, partly cloudy, and a continued breeze below near 46. And tomorrow, we'll see mostly sunny skies, return breezy conditions too, with the high near 64. I'm meteorologist Kyle Butler from 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
You can help fight deadly diseases like RSV and influenza while getting paid for your time. Velocity Clinical Research is now seeking clinical trial participants in your area. Participants can receive compensation for study-related time. No health insurance is needed to join. Find a study near you at velocitytrials.com. That's velocitytrials.com.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
The Rabbit Hole Bakery, located at 8th and Q in the Haymarket, is the ideal place for fresh breakfast items or desserts made daily. Cream puffs, cinnamon rolls, carrot cake, sweet potato, pecan cookies, brownies, blondies. Do I need to keep going? What about bread pudding with homemade bourbon caramel sauce? Stop by the Rabbit Hole Bakery at 8th and Q in the Haymarket today to satisfy your cravings. And if you're looking for larger group orders, they do that too. Order ahead on their website at therabbitholebakery.com today.
Davis Plumbing has been in business for over 15 years and is currently searching for journeyman plumbers to join their team. Experience is preferred, but not required for all applicants. When you join the team at Davis Plumbing, you'll receive full benefits package with paid time off. Join a small local business doing big things in Lincoln and surrounding areas. Apply today by calling 402-525-6922 or find them on social media. Davis Plumbing, locally owned and operated for over 15 years.
You never think cancer will happen to you. I smoked for over 40 years. My doctor recommended that I get annual lung cancer screening. They were able to catch my cancer at stage 1. It's never too late to quit. Even if you're still smoking, you need to ask your doctor about annual lung cancer screening. Just 30 minutes a year could save your life.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
It's game on at Elway Power Sports of Lincoln, Nebraska's premier Kawasaki dealership. Score big on Kawasaki's all-new Ridge lineup. The Ridge XR, the Ridge HVAC, and the Ridge Limited. All built to take on your day with a full factory cab, including heat and AC. Stop by Indian Motorcycle of Lincoln today and rule the streets on an Indian motorcycle with customer cash and trade-in credits up to $2,000 during the month of November. Elway Power Sports of Lincoln at 27th and I-80.
The Link Grill, Draft, and Crafts is your spot in Southeast Lincoln for great food and drink. They're serving new menu items and a killer craft cocktail menu with your favorite draft beers. You'll love their pizza and new entree options. It's a great place to watch any live events, and they have music bingo every month. They have an aggressive loyalty program that rewards fans with 7% back on all purchases. Home of the Nebraska Power Hour every night from 8 to 9 p.m. Order online at thelnkgrill.com or stop in at 84th and Highway 2 today.
Get rid of pesky critters once and for all with Bats to Rats. Their expert team is here to help you reclaim your home. No more sleepless nights caused by crawling critters or flapping wings. Bats to Rats ensures a safe environment for every family member. Check the website at batstoRats.com for amazing offers. And if you mention this ad, you'll receive $10 off your initial inspection cost. Call Bats to Rats today at 402-781-8691. That's 402-781-8691. Bats to Rats.
Welcome in to the Corner 3. Taking you around the arc of college basketball. From the NCAAC to the Pac-12, the WCC to the SWAC. We cover it all now on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
Welcome in. It is the Corner 3. We do this every Friday night from 6 to 7 p.m. Well, 6 to 6:45-ish tonight. High school football coming up. Next, Joined, as I am basically every other week, by Jacob Bigelow, host of the Stretch Big podcast, contributor to many other forms of basketball entertainment. We'll let Jacob give you the rundown of where you can find him here in just a minute. But Jacob, it's a welcome back to the studio. We had an every other week plan, but this will set the stage perfectly for where we're going. You had maybe the only acceptable reason to tell me at rain check last week.
Yeah, when I shot you a text last week and I was just like, hey, man, I'm not going to be able to make it Friday, but I think I've got a good excuse. And that's because I just decided to make the trip down to Lawrence, Kansas for one of the best college basketball games of the season so far, and maybe a game of the year candidate when it's all said and done between Kansas and North Carolina. So that's where I was at last week. And that was... worth the dent that I put in my bank account, and worth the trip. It was a blast.
Was that your first time at the Fog?
That was my second time.
Second time. What was the first time?
Indiana, Kansas, a couple years ago. My connections to the Indiana coaching staff were the what led that to be. I can say full-heartedly, I wasn't expecting to be sitting 3 seats down from Indiana's athletic director, to the point where I had to introduce myself. He's like, "Hey, who do you know?" I'm like, sorry. So that was my first experience at the Fog for a game. But they're both they were both incredible. That place is unlike anywhere else in the country to watch basketball, and I cannot encourage, even if you're not a Kansas fan, even if you hate Kansas, like if you have an appreciation for the history of the sport and the game in general, there's no more historic program in the sport than Kansas, and there's, I think, in my mind, no better place to watch a college basketball game.
Did you do the museum?
Absolutely.
Both times?
The first time I was there, where the rules are was closed. So you could go to the museum downstairs, but you couldn't see the rules. I got to do both last week.
But you can see the rules in Los Angeles tomorrow, too. Badum-tis.
It's it was really cool to see the original rules of basketball document and all the. I mean, there's so much history there, man. And I'm a dork. If you can tell, just look at me. I'm a dork. But are you
a dork or a sicko? You got to pick one.
Depends on the day. I think Kansas, North Carolina, I was just a dork because it's two of the. It's literally two of the blue bloods of the sport. Mm-hmm. Carolina hadn't been to Lawrence since 1960. They hadn't played it. They hadn't played in the regular season since 1980. And then obviously all those connections. I mean, that just made all my basketball dork wheels start spinning, and I had a great time.
The only time I have been down to the Fog, I went with one of my longtime good buddies who is a Kansas fan. Basically, his entire family is. For the game that Nebraska went down there to play number 3 Kansas. That did not go so well for Nebraska. No. 54 points is what the Jayhawks put up in the first half of that one. Do you remember who Nebraska's leading scorer was in that game?
What year?
Would have been in December of 2016.
Oh, so my freshman year.
Yeah, so the 16-17.
It was Ty, right?
It was Ty Webster.
Yeah. Ty had a good game. Yeah, that was my freshman year of being a manager. So yeah.
Ty Webster led Nebraska 22 points. He had a 9 of 20 showing from the field. Ed Morrow, the second leading scorer, with 16. And then off the bench, 10 points in 19 minutes. Any guesses? The only other guy in double figures.
Ooh, McVeigh?
It was not McVeigh.
Nick Fuller.
It was not Nick Fuller. It was Jordy Shamonga.
Oh, of course. Sorry, Jordy. No, sorry, pal. I know he's gonna somehow hear it somewhere, but no, I forgot about Big Jordy. My bad.
Very balanced night from Kansas. Frank Mason, the third, led the way with 18. You had Josh Jackson, of all people, go off for 17.
That's a name.
But then the two guys that really killed Nebraska the next year, Zvi Mikhailuk, 15 on 6 of 11. But quiet night for Udoka Azubuike. 7 points and 4 personal fouls in just 16 minutes for him. Unfortunately, that was not a sign of things to come next year.
It was not, no. You're not my therapist, so I don't need to talk about that game.
Well, no, we have to, because I have questions for you because you were on that bench.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't know it at the time, but now I do.
Yeah.
What was going on in the Nebraska huddle? Up by what? Up by 1, up by 2 at that point when Kansas takes the timeout? What was the conversation in that huddle?
I don't remember
don't cop out
details, but I will say this: we knew the play. We knew the corner play. And I'm not going to say who had the scout, but the person who had it, the entire time is yelling, corner, corner. And honestly, it was a good closeout too. Roby, It was a good closeout by Roby, an even better made shot from Svi. And then, they had a couple chances at the other end. But I mean, yeah, that's I when I jokingly say, I have no hate in what's left of my heart. I say what's left of my heart because of what happened that day. So
there is an unnamed KRNU announcer who also coming out of break said, I know Devontae Graham is there. I know Azubuike's had a good night, but they're not finishing with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna say who that unnamed KRNU announcer was, but one of them
is he in this room?
I will not confirm nor deny.
Okay.
But actually, I want to confirm that he is in this room right now. Augie is on our text line. He is our resident Tar Heels fan that texts into the show. Jacob, that game down at the Fog wasn't a great game in the first half. Looked like Kansas was ready to run away with it. Carolina makes some adjustments, and you get an instant classic, almost the exact opposite of what happened in the 2022 National Championship game.
Yeah, that's just kind of a thought that I had. I'm just like, they really want to flip the script on them, huh? But I think part of that is due, in fact, to, I mean, I will beat this drum all year. I don't know if there's a more frustrating player in college basketball to watch than Hunter Dickinson. If I was looking at Carolina, if I was looking at Carolina's personnel and I'm 7 feet tall, I'm not thinking I'm just gonna stand out at the top of the key because I want to be a stretch and shoot threes. Like I'm parking my what down inside, and I'm taking Van Allen Lubin, and I forget who the starter was, but
was it Jalen Washington?
Yes, I'm taking Jalen Washington and Van Allen Lubin to school because I'm 7 feet tall and 23 years old, and I've played this much college basketball, and that was the most frustrating part watching it. And I was a neutral observer just there I'm just like, what is he doing? And like, what is Hunter doing? And I will say this: it was cool to see Zeke Mayo, a Lawrence kid, go off, in the biggest game, if his, KU career to that point. He's only been there for a couple weeks, but that was still pretty cool to see. And, I don't know what to think of Carolina in the long term. I really like RJ Davis, but that front court being so suspect, I don't really know what to project them at in the ACC.
Just project them worse than Duke. That's really what matters. I think when you look at that rivalry specifically, Duke's strength is in the front court, and that's going to be Carolina's weakness. And I think that Duke's guards are less of a weakness than Carolina's front court, but I could very well be homering the crap out of that. We'll get to Duke in a second, but while we're on Kansas, the Fighting Frankie Fiddlers gave him a better game than I would have thought in the Champions Classic. Wasn't a very efficient night from Frankie Fiddler from the floor, but he got to the free throw line. Michigan State punched first. Kansas punched first. Michigan State got it back to a game. Kansas just kind of kept Michigan State at arm's length. But I'm going to credit the Spartans. I didn't see that one coming. I thought Kansas would have that one in the bag by double digits and coast pretty early.
Yeah, I came out with mixed emotions on both teams. I don't really know what to think of Michigan State. I think the difference in that game wound up being, here's his name again. I think one team had Hunter Dickinson and one team's starting center transferred from Longwood. And that was the biggest difference in that game, in my opinion. I really have mixed thoughts on both of those teams because Michigan State is perplexing to me. I think the world of Tom Izzo. I really like Jaden Akins. I really like, why is Xavier Booker just clanking threes? And why is he continuing?
Once, please.
Yes. Why is he continuing to, do that? I liked what I saw from Frankie. I liked how he, kind of tried to bring him back into it late. I think he's in an interesting position there. But I kind of think that goes for all the Omaha kids through the first couple weeks. I'm just like, yeah, you got your checks. Yeah, you're in California for two of them. You got to go to Spain in the summer, and you get to go to Maui in a couple weeks for Michigan State. But the basketball part for some of them is not looking all that great through the first couple weeks.
It's really not. I'm glad you brought up Jaden Akins. I like him as a player too, but he was in hell. He was in a cage. It was not going well for Jaden Akins. Jeremy Fears, let's not forget, this is a guy that got shot
at
the end of last year, like Ricky Pearsall style in his back playing college basketball. That's a heck of a story there. But if Xavier Booker takes 5 shots and 4 of them are from 3, either that's a crappy game plan or you filled him with too much confidence from long range. If Jackson Kohler is taking 14 shots, That's a problem. And he only scored 12 points. That's wildly
No.
inefficient. And I'm not going to say Cohen Carr is some superstar. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a role guy, but he is one of the most athletic players I've ever seen in person. Some of the dunks that he pulled before last year's Nebraska-Michigan State game, like, I did have to pick my jaw up off the floor. I'm not saying feature him. I'm saying that athleticism against a team like Kansas, put him in, let him be a dog, let him go to work with the starters.
Yeah, you'd think, right? And with Michigan State, I mean, last year, they were struggling in the front court, and they just had a 5-star and Booker just sitting on the bench, gathering, collecting dust on the bench for the early part of the season. And now he's, in a, expanded role, and he's chucking threes. I'm just like, and I know, like, knowing Tom, I mean, Tom Izzo, I mean, he what's left of his hair, he might rip out, by the end of it, with some of the pieces on that team in East Lansing. But it definitely, leaves a lot to be desired. But then again, November college basketball is November college basketball for a reason.
The other game in the Champions Classic, Duke, Kentucky. Wildcats win it by 5 in a game that Duke was favored by 7. What did you come out of that game with?
I think Duke, I mean, it's not the end. I mean, it's like I said, it's November. I was really impressed with both teams. I don't know if I liked the Jay Williams halftime curse that wound up coming back to maybe bite Duke, saying it's the most talented Duke team since 2001. I don't know how I felt about that.
And then the cope from his car on
Yes.
post game, that was unnecessary.
That was a lot. But I mean, Cooper Flagg looked the part until the last 2 minutes of the game, and it comes back to me with Duke is can John Shire coach? And in the late game in that game, like, why are you not drawing something up for Con Knippel, like, to get a look from 3 down late? And like, I know you've got the projected number 1 pick in the draft. He's people will gladly remind you he's 17 years old. He's supposed to be in high school.
He couldn't even vote, dang it.
No, he can't vote. He couldn't go to war, all of that. But you draw something up. Like, draw something up late game for one of your shooters, even if it's a post play for Malawatch. Like, don't just say.
Well, Malawatch was out with cramp.
That is true. He was cramping. Duke remains the worst hydrated team in all of college basketball.
Literally.
They cramp up so much.
First it was Paulo.
Yeah, it hurts my basketball manager heart to see these guys cramping up. And I'm just like, what are these guys doing? Like, Krzyzewski had those dudes like in boot camp. They were sprinting off the court. Like,
well, he did come from boot camp.
Yeah,
to be fair.
He did for sure. He did for sure. But I mean, it's not the end of the world for Duke. The biggest question for me remains Shire and his coaching acumen, because we know he can recruit. We talked about it as much the last time I was in here, and the hot streak that he's on recruiting. And then for Kentucky, like, was Kentucky underrated to start the season? Like, were not enough people talking about them? And I know, like, the common sentiment is year 1, new coach, new roster. Like, how good could it be? And I'm not saying they're going to set the world on fire, because I think they're in the best conference in college basketball. That is my hot take.
Okay.
I think my take through the first couple weeks is the SEC is the best conference in basketball. But I think not enough people were giving them credit. I think they've got some dudes.
But it makes sense, right? Because they didn't bring in that big transfer, that big name, right? Like, I'm a Jackson Robinson guy. He was invisible. Otega Owe was maybe the second most important player in that game for them. Andrew Carr, right? Like, those aren't names you get excited about. Mark Pope hadn't won a conference, hadn't won an NCAA tournament game. I can understand the skepticism, but now let's wake up, sheeple. Now we know what Kentucky is and can be. No more.
Oh yeah. I mean them through the first 2 weeks compared to the other team in that state through the first 2 weeks. I mean, that could be a bloodbath when that game comes around. I forget where it is and where it's at, but I mean, that rivalry is, as goofy as all get out, going from Calipari and Chris Mack cutting WWE promos to a dude who loves Taylor Swift music.
That game is in Lexington in a month.
In Lexington. To a dude who loves Taylor Swift music on one side and Diet Dan Hurley with Clark Kent glasses and tribal tats on the other bench for Louisville. So that rivalry just keeps taking all sorts of turns. But I mean, that was kind of my biggest takeaway from Tuesday night was like, yeah, Kentucky was ranked in the preseason, but were enough people giving them credit.
I'm with you on that. Jacob Bigelow, Austin Oerman with you. Just my last kind of couple cents here is Yeah, as the Duke fan, I'm not panicking. Duke shot it better than 17% from three before. And I was telling mutual friend Matt Hardesty, Kentucky fan, that this game comes down to 3-point variance. If Duke falls in love with the three and it's not going down, Kentucky wins. If Duke makes this an interior game, they'll probably find a way to squeak it out, even with Kentucky's math advantage. Kentucky shot 10 of 25 from three. Their last one was a heave from Kirk Kriisa, one-time Nebraska ball target. Kirk Kriisa, people forget. You knew as soon as he checked in, he was taking that shot. I'm going to credit Lamont Butler, right? Talk about a winner, a guy with national championship game experience for San Diego State. But Kentucky having Lamont Butler down the stretch and Duke not having Sion James, I think ended up being the difference, right? A guy that could organize, could defend for Duke. Credit the Wildcats. They won that game, I think, more than Duke lost it. Got the same questions about Shire. The one weakness for Cooper Flagg is self-creation, and all you do is run ISO with him. I'm fine if the ball ends up in his hands. But Tyrese Proctor was 4 of 9 on the night, 2 of 5 from three, also had 2 assists. Put the ball in Caleb Foster's hands. He had 4 assists, even on a rough shooting night. Or even Con Knippel had 3 assists. Now, 20 shots is a lot.
That is
even
a lot.
for a guy like Con Knippel. 20 of Duke's 71 shots from Knippel, 19 of them from Cooper Flagg. And they're going to get the most shots throughout the year. But yeah, just kind of boring, unimaginative down the stretch. But again, you see the difference. I like John, and I'm not going to set this up as, white collar, blue collar, this or that. It's not a classist sort of thing. But you kind of see the upbringing, right? The moniker for Krzyzewski is you're more talented, roll the ball out, let him go make a play. Mark Pope's a grinder, right? Transferring into Kentucky the way he did, the way he became a captain, the way that 96 team won, having to grind his way up from Utah Valley to BYU, now to Kentucky. Both guys' backgrounds really shone through in the last 2 minutes.
I mean, how about, I didn't know that he dropped out of med school to get into coaching.
Yeah.
Like that was that made me do a double take. I'm like, how did I not know this? Like he was in med school and he wanted to get into coaching instead. But yeah, that's a pretty apt, thing to bring up. He kind of did. Mark Pope, I've heard him tell stories about, his rookie year in the NBA and, rookie hazing and Fred Hoiberg shaving his head. He has all the Pacers, the Pacers, were shaving their heads for the playoffs. He's been through it all, man, all levels. And I think I'm interested to see what the future holds for him and back at home in Lexington.
Other games of the year that come to mind for me, probably the game of the year right now for my money. Auburn-Houston at the Toyota Center. Got home from, I believe, Nebraska ball played earlier that night. Get home and watch Auburn-Houston. Houston up at half. Some dude named Tahad Pettiford goes from fouling out in 19 minutes to 21 points, including 5 3-pointers. Johnny Broom, just incredible. Get to know the name. I was not surprised to see Auburn make a run. I was maybe slightly surprised to see Houston allow 46 points in a basketball half. That doesn't happen. But it revealed the flaw about Houston again. Late game offense. It's always been what it's been under Kelvin Sampson. To take no credit away from Auburn, they more than earned that win.
That game was a bar fight on a basketball court, but that's what's to be expected when you got 2 pit bulls on the sideline and Kelvin Sampson and Bruce Pearl. And my favorite thing about Auburn basketball is the names and faces change, but their guards play the same every single year. Auburn guards, it's like Busch Light. Like it's always gonna take. They may change the design, they may change. There may be corn on the can, it may be military appreciation, whatever, but it's gonna taste the same. It's gonna give you the same feeling every year. That is a hell of a metaphor that I just brought out of nowhere. But it aesthetically is going to look the same. But Tahad Pettiford was incredible in that game, and Johnny Broom. He's a player of the year candidate, and that game. Here's the thing we're not talking about. What happened before the game?
Oh my gosh.
And Auburn's flight having to land early because their dudes were scrapping on the plane. And
set the tone.
If you haven't gone the pilot audio of the pilot talking to air traffic control, we got a bunch of basketball players fighting. There's blood. We're gonna have to land. Is hot take is fighting on the plane the new players only meeting. Like when you need to set the tone, like forget the closed door players only meeting, in-flight fight club. Like, is that the new hottest thing in college basketball? But I mean, everything that went into that game, the personalities of Pearl and Kelvin, the styles of play, and then just dudes fighting on the flight from Alabama to Texas. I mean, and this is November, folks. This is November in college basketball. Why do we watch college basketball in November? All those things I just said. That's why.
We sleep in May. Let's bust out that corny line.
My least favorite internet personality, whose tweets I have to see now because of the new rules on that app. But yeah, no, that we. As you can tell by these bags under my eyes, I'm not sleeping, but I don't have to tweet about it every single day like he does.
Maybe the only thing that was more surprising about there being an Auburn fight is that it wasn't a Memphis fight. Like I don't have a specific Memphis game to bring up, but I just need to get this off my chest. How does Penny Hardaway win games? How does Penny Hardaway win games?
Hey,
what's going on in that program?
Hey, I've got something for you. There's a perfect match for that job when he inevitably gets fired. Do you know what I'm about to say?
I'm too busy freaking out internally about how Penny Hardaway wins games. But
well, you know who's going to get there and win games? Future Memphis basketball coach Will Wade.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Have you heard?
Oh my God!
Is there a better match made in heaven for Will Wade?
American Gangster.
Give Will Wade FedEx money to put a roster together. A fan base that's going to be like, here's this. Like it's that if a fan base. That fan base is Buddy Garrity from Friday Night Lights.
They're doing a reboot.
Really?
Yes.
That hurts my heart.
Yeah.
But Memphis basketball fans, it's just Buddy Garrity from Friday Night Lights. I don't care about nothing else but winning, so go win, coach. Like if they hire Will Wade and he gets FedEx money, look out. Because
clear checks, full bags.
No, there is never. That is perfect. There has never been a more perfect match for a job than Will Wade and Memphis basketball. You heard it here first. That isn't sourced. That's just speculation. But there is no. I looked dead in the camera to say that's not sourced. But I mean, there has never been a more perfect match. And there's a new AD at Memphis. There's a new university president at Memphis, and then there's the absolute mess that program has been under Penny Hardaway. And the only time I like watching Memphis under Penny is when they wear those Memphis State jerseys.
Will Wade makes those permanent.
Oh, he makes them. Yeah, that's the home. They might go play at the Pyramid again under Will Wade. They might
go play in their best pro shot. Make this freaking happen.
I could see it.
Poor Ryan Silverfield.
Man,
you'd have no idea what he's in for.
Nope.
Nope. Wow. Yeah. Let's just do a hard transition here. Speaking of money, let's do chicken nugget money. Arkansas 1-1 on the year. Baylor rebounds from Jackview. Jackview? Is that Mark Few's kid's name? Josh?
Joe. Isn't
Joe
it Joe?
Few.
Yes.
Joe Few.
Joe Few.
Getting obliterated by VJ Edgecombe. That set the tone for Baylor against Arkansas. Baylor in cruise control in the first half, up 42-39 at the break. Arkansas makes it a game. It was never a blowout in favor of the Bears. Heck of a response, though, from Baylor after what Gonzaga did to them for 40 minutes.
Yeah, and that's just the Scott Drew of it all, man. He's America's pastor, but he's also going to be able to get his team to bounce back, get up off the mat. And when you've got a guy like VJ Edgecombe, it makes it pretty easy to get up off the mat. I don't want to say,
and he wasn't even that great against Arkansas.
No, it was a total team deal, and I only saw parts of that game, but I think. Those are two teams that I'm still intrigued by for the long haul. And I know, say what you will about Calipari and his chicken nugget money, but those guards, man, as they learn to play together and play better. I think Arkansas could be a problem in the SEC. And there's a reason why the SEC made sure that Cal's return trip to Rupp is the week between NFL conference championship games and the Super Bowl.
Garth Ghostman, stand up.
Yep, stand up, Garth. Shout out Garth, friend of my program and friend of everyone. But there's a reason, and that's going to be one of the main events of the season. And I think both of those teams, dare I say it, maybe under the radar a little, like when we get into the long haul, like for this season. So I'm very, it's still early, but I would take some Baylor and Arkansas stock in the long run.
Oh, I'm with you. For me, with Arkansas, if I do, he's not going to score 24 a game, right? But we know he's a defensive menace. If he can score 14 to 16 a game, looking the way he did, I think that's huge for them. Carter Knox, younger brother of Kevin Knox, I guess we'll see if he comes along. The only reason I may be slightly hesitant to buy into Baylor is the three-point shooting. They need that to be 36, 37% or more. That is a small team. If Norchad Omier is your starting center and you're starting Jeremy Roach at point guard, like, don't get me wrong, I love Jeremy Roach. Jaden Dunn is fun. BJ Edgecombe is a freaking stud. Robert Wright would be starting for 330 teams in America. But if you're not going to make your threes at a higher rate than you are now, that's your one advantage. And in that conference with that grind, Baylor should be a probably top 20 overall. See, I think they're a 5 seed or better. But if they're not shooting, they're going to play themselves down into a tougher, 6-11, 7-10 matchup that they don't need.
Yeah. And then my thing with them still is defense. And I know when you think Baylor, you think defense, but since Jerome Tang left, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's gone in the tank, but it's definitely not what it used to be. But that's a byproduct of when, Jerome Tang was there for 20 years and he, waited until
America's associate pastor.
And America's associate pastor. Wonder what Corky saying was on his T-shirt after they lost to LSU last night.
Thank you for bringing that up, by the way.
Scott Drew. As long as Scott Drew's in Waco, they're gonna have something to say, in that league, no matter how deep it is. Because it's gonna be a grind and a half. That's gonna be a gauntlet. But such is life in the world of super conferences.
That it is. Let's take a break. Let's switch gears here. NCAA tournament expansion. Charlie Baker, NCAA president, was on the Dan Patrick Show. He said something that neither of the hosts in this room appreciated. We'll break it down in short order next.
Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket as soon as the clock hits 0 for the Jay Foreman postgame show. Listen to expert analysis from the Husker Hall of Famer, an 8-year NFL veteran, for 90 minutes after the game. The Jay Foreman postgame show, sponsored by Anderson Ford, Tanner's Bar and Grill, Tavern 180, Elway Power Sports of Lincoln, Vinny Kreekak of State Farm Insurance, and Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Hey, Ticket listeners, spend your Husker football Saturday at the P. Dale Pub in Pleasantdale, as the Jay Foreman postgame show will be broadcasting live for 90 minutes immediately after the Nebraska-USC football game. Ribeyes are on special for as long as supplies last, with plenty of cold beer on tap to enjoy during and after a Husker victory against the Trojans. It's the Jay Foreman postgame show, live from the P. Dale Pub in Pleasantdale, this Saturday, immediately following the Nebraska football game on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Step into healing at Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery. Our team of top-notch medical professionals turns pain into progress with state-of-the-art treatments and compassionate care. Visit prairieortho.com and discover the difference in quality orthopedic and plastic surgery services tailored to your unique needs. Your health matters, and Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery is dedicated to helping you thrive. Reach your full potential. Embrace a better tomorrow with Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery.
At Fairway Meat Market, your family, and as part of the family, they want to save you money on your meat and groceries. Now, through November 17th, enjoy USDA prime boneless ribeye steaks for $26.99 per pound. 8-ounce USDA choice boneless New York strips for $5.98 each. 24 packs of Coors Light and Miller Lite for $17.99 when you purchase 2. And call 402-486-6611 to place your holiday orders today. That's all at Fairway Meat Market in the Rockledge Square Shopping Center, just south of 84th and Van Dorn.
At Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, we're ready, reliable, and recommended. Water heater acting up or your sump pump on the fritz? Call Action. Summer's around the corner. Is your AC working? Are you sure? Call Action. Electrical problems? I'm telling you, call Action. Call Action for a free same-day estimate or a trusted second opinion. You heard that right, a free same-day estimate. 402-423-6960. ActionLincoln.com.
Hey guys, it's Nick Sander. Join me and Jay Foreman this Friday night from Concordia University as we bring you Class B playoff action as the Seward Blue Jays host the Omaha Catholic Skyhawks. Seward survived a scare against Gretna East last Friday and now face a 10-1 Skyhawks squad who defeated Waverly 38-21 on Friday. It's semifinal Friday with a trip to the Class B title on the line as the 2-seed Seward Blue Jays face the number 3 seed Omaha Catholic Skyhawks this Friday at 7 p.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
You never think cancer will happen to you. I smoked for over 40 years. My doctor recommended that I get annual lung cancer screening. They were able to catch my cancer at stage 1. It's never too late to quit. Even if you're still smoking, you need to ask your doctor about annual lung cancer screening. Just 30 minutes a year could save your life.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
We're back here on the Corner 3. Austin Oerman joined by Jacob Bigelow with you here. If you want to be a part of the conversation, hit us up 402-464-5685. Just need a simple yes or no. Are you in favor of NCAA tournament expansion? 402-464-5685. Or hit us on the comment section. Both of those brought to you by our great friends just down the street from us at 12th and O at Sartor Heyman Jewelers. Charlie Baker was not on the ticket. He was on the Dan Patrick Show just a couple days ago. Talking some college football playoff, but Dan Patrick also asked about the men's basketball tournament, the possibility of expanding from the current 68 teams to 96. Charlie Baker said, nope, we're not. The most we'll ever go to is somewhere in the 70s. The calendar is very, very limited in how many games we can slam into that period of time. Not a great sign, Jacob, but I've also heard worse news.
Yeah, this is such a weird topic because it feels like the NIL of college basketball. Like college football, people love talking about NIL, but then the games start. And it's like, why aren't we talking about NIL anymore? And yes, the games have started, but I feel like this just will like randomly like pop up. Like it's like one of the bombs in Mario. Like it's just gonna randomly, like you never know when it's gonna show up. You know, it'll just be there. You know, it'll magically appear. People will get mad, and then people just won't talk about it anymore. And it'll just, you never know when it's gonna come back again. And obviously, this is all a byproduct, you know, of like we mentioned in the last segment, these super conferences. And, you know, we're going to hear this argument from so many leagues, not just the Big Ten, but other leagues are going to make it to like the middle of the league doesn't suck. This is just a deep conference. The bottom of the league doesn't suck. This is just a deep conference. We cannibalize each other. Like it's going to become such a common refrain in college basketball. We don't need barely 500 power conference teams in the NCAA tournament. Like plain and simple. We don't need that, and that includes the team that plays in this city. If they're barely 500, they don't need to be playing in the NCAA tournament, and that goes for any team in the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC. Like your season can end, and it's all about money and whatever, and it's well above my pay grade. But I mean, yeah, I've had the same answer for the last couple years. We don't need that at all.
We shouldn't want it. And here's the thing. For those of you who are listening, whether it's live or via the podcast, the two guys sitting in the studio are not ones to turn down more basketball, especially Sickos basketball, right? We're about it. We are about that life. And even we are telling you, for the love of God and his green earth, no, we don't need this. I went back and dug up some comments, right? Greg Sankey was one of these guys, obviously SEC going to be at the forefront, talking about UCLA's run from the first four to the Final Four, Syracuse from Dayton to the Sweet 16 as well. He says, those examples just tell you that the bandwidth inside the top 50 is highly competitive. To Pete Thamel, we're giving away highly competitive opportunities for automatic qualifiers. And I think that pressure is going to rise as we have more competitive basketball leagues at the top end because of expansion. No, you're not giving away spots. Those teams earned those spots. They won their conferences. I don't know if I've ever given you this screen, but just briefly, conference regular season champions should get the auto bid, and conference tournaments should be used to improve seeding. That's my take on the matter.
I think I would need to I don't hate that, honestly.
Because
at first gash, I don't hate that. Because I mean the postseason is supposed to reward the teams that are the best in the regular season, right? Like that would make all the sense in the world. So yeah, I would need to digest that. That might be something for me to write about. But that's
because I just
like
think
that
about
idea.
these one bid, these auto bid conferences where that's all they get. Like I'm not as worried about like the A10 on the kind of mid lower level. Like the old Horizon League, the old Missouri Valley, like those teams would usually get 2 in anyways, at least when the committee did its job right. But these teams like, let's say Vermont lost in the America East or something like that, like, and they won the regular season. Like that's a tournament staple. If they win the regular season, they prove it over an 18, 20 game sample size, you're in. Now credit to the team that wins the tournament, whether it's a 7-game run, a 3-game run, whatever it is. But guess what? You had 20 games to prove it.
Yeah.
Right? Like Bradley hasn't been in the NCAA tournament because they've lost to Drake, even though Bradley has won or been second in the Mo Valley. And don't get me wrong. Like, shout out Darian DeVries, shout out Tucker DeVries and co for what they've done. But if I'm a Bradley fan, I'm kind of pissed. Like, yeah, show up when it matters, but also you proved it over a larger sample size that you should be in. And that's where I get to, especially here, and this is not coming from being salty about Duke losing to North Carolina State, who played their way into the tournament. I've been on this boat for years now. Like, congratulations. You won 5 games in 5 days. That's cool. But you also had, 150 days to win 25 games, and you didn't do it. Syracuse is another one that annoys me. They'll make these deep runs, win the tournament, and then sneak in when they don't necessarily, in my eyes at least, deserve it. So, cool. If you get a shot at, Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke, like North Carolina State did, and those are teams that are in the NCAA tournament, congratulations. You moved yourself up the bubble. But I don't think just by winning those games, that should be your automatic ticket.
Yeah, and that just becomes like, I mean, in a perfect world, when you think about the NCAA tournament, you would want there to be more of the mid majors, right? And that would be a door that I would be open to in expansion. But when you have, the big wigs like Sankey and Charlie Baker, and I'm sure Tony Petiti and his military black Jordans that he was wearing when he had his summit with Sankey, if they're commenting on it, they're talking about their own self-interest. They're not thinking about these little conferences. They're not thinking about
nor should they be. They're not.
Nor should they be. Obviously not. But I mean, in my mind, like that'd be a door that I'd be open to when it comes to some leagues like the Valley and like. I mean, I'm very close with a coaching staff in the AAC. And in the AAC last year, you have a team that is in the middle of getting investigated for point shaving. Go on a run in their conference tournament. And the AAC still got multiple teams in, but I mean, and that USF loses in that tournament, and they don't make the dance. The staff that I'm close with does, and they give San Diego State a run in their first game. But I mean, there's stories like that. I mean, that's the Kemba UConn team, right? Like the 5 games in 5 days. Like it's the the stories like that just add to the aura of the NCAA tournament. The kids, they're saying aura a lot, but the NCAA tournament has that and then some. But that would be the only avenue that I'd be open to. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. We don't need it. We don't need to talk about it. And it's just it's a perfect thing. It's a perfect thing. It's arguably the most perfect event in sports. And I don't think it needs to be altered or touched, for the time being.
They went to 68 in 2011, and I was against it at the time, but you know what? It's grown on me, to be fair, right? First 4 in Dayton, you get a couple 16 seeds play, and you get a couple 11 seeds playing for a couple days. Okay, it's a nice little appetizer. It's fine. Do I love it? No. 64 is a perfectly square number. You know exactly how many games. You count down the bracket. It's simple. But I'm not anti-68. The Sankey idea is expand to 76 and put the bottom 24 teams in a couple of play-in days on Tuesday and Wednesday for the bottom 12 seeds. No, you're screwing over mid-major programs. You give more of the auto bids to power conference teams who had more than enough time to prove that they deserve to be outside the bubble. These small conference teams are the magic of March, right? Yeah, it's cool when UCLA does its first 4. It's cool when Syracuse does its first 4. NC State last year, whatever. Like, that's cool. But come on. You're gonna shaft Fairleigh Dickinson. You're gonna shaft UMBC. I get why these power conference commissioners would want to do it. And yes, their first obligation is to their conference. But they also got to think about the sport of basketball.
Yeah. And there's just not a lot of, basketball minded people like in the power chairs, outside of the Big East. I mean, it's football.
But again, shout out Garth Blissman. You're trying your best.
Shout out
Bless
Garth.
your heart.
We love Garth. But the whole, I talked to an assistant coach who was, in the first four last year, and they, this is a school, the conference is on the West Coast, and their travel schedule to go from their conference tournament in Las Vegas to the first four, they win in the first four, and then they have to, they get out of Dayton after midnight. They fly to Charlotte. They're jet lagged, and they're not going to run a full practice the next day. They just played, and it's their one. Like and you're talking about having more games for bottom 12 seeds. Obviously, these guys are athletes. They're they're conditioned, but you to add to the rigor of it in an event that is already like turned up to 11 in terms of the attention and the routines and the open practices and the media availability and all the attention on it. It's completely different than your entire regular season in college hoops. And just to add more like hoops to jump through and just more rigor to an already, like, it's already been a gauntlet of a season, and now you're down to the coup de grace of like where everybody wants to be. Like, you don't need to like just add more obstacles for these teams and for these student athletes.
The next time that you're in here, I will have a card written up for you to send to these people for removing the pack line defense from college basketball.
Well, hell, man,
they deserve it.
Yeah, something like that. So hopefully Tony Bennett doesn't hear that, and he's not, punching air. He's probably
he can punch all the air he wants. For all
he's probably punching air watching what once a great program was.
And they did beat Nova though.
That ain't saying much. Kyle Neptune might not make it to the new year, but some other.
Yeah.
So they won. So that means they get Mitch Henderson.
Oh,
so that means
you're taking Mitch over Ryan Odom.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
And then, just because I think to go from a team with brutal offense to, I'm not saying he's just going to run the full Princeton at Virginia, but it would be quite a step in the right direction if that came to be.
Just while I'm trying to search that score, let me find it here real quick. I had it up and then I went away from it. Final score of that one was 70-60. Virginia beat Villanova. It was 31-19 before Eric Dixon hit a 4-point play at the end of the first half. Butler's up 2 on SMU. Another fun game tonight is Marquette on the road at Maryland. But while I'm on the scoreboard, it's Florida over Florida State 67-54, approaching the U8. Rutgers in the Ace Bailey debut up 18 on Monmouth early second. I questioned the line of the next game. I saw Bama by 1 in Mackey.
Yep.
Right now, the U4, it's 35-32 Boilers.
Mm-hmm. That's
okay. Maybe I was wrong.
Yeah,
maybe I was wrong.
That's got me raising my eyebrow a little bit. Purdue got a game from Yale the other night. Looks like,
but Yale's fine. Yale's good.
Well, it looks like early on it's the Trey Kaufman-Renn show. He's already taken 11 shots. He's got 13 points. When I did my podcast with Tate Frazier, I said that Matt Painter and Trey Kaufman-Renn is like Mean Girls. Like, stop trying to make fetch happen, because he loves to try to make Trey Kaufman-Renn happen. But I watched him. I saw him in person in Omaha in their exhibition game against Creighton, and I was just like, this is interesting. And now they're in a unique situation with Daniel Jacobson, out for the season.
Right.
So they've got Will Berg, who leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to
his name is Will Berg.
Your prototypical Purdue big man. So I'm interested to see those. I'm gonna fire. I'm not gonna fire up Peacock while I drive home, but I'm interested to see the looks that they're throwing at him, because TKR, I'm sure they're probably trying to have him go right at Grant Nelson, if I had to guess,
or Cliff Amore.
Yeah,
there's familiarity there.
Yeah, so that would be my thought. But that game definitely has my attention.
We've got just a couple minutes left here on the show before we send you out to Concordia University. While we're on NCAA tournament expansion too, I think it does bear mentioning that the Big Ten and the SEC are already getting their way in the next wave. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I want to bring it up with you as well here in a couple minutes, is that the SEC and the ACC, now their top 2 non-NCAA tournament teams get auto bids to the NIT. which at least the NIT is restoring some sanity. Top 4 teams that don't host or that don't make it to the NCAA tournament get to host. And if you win your regular season as a mid-major but lose in your conference tournament, you get an auto bid to the NIT. There's at least some sanity there. Jacob, I am so vehemently opposed to this college basketball crown thing that's happening in Vegas.
Oh, the Fox thing?
Yes,
right?
the Fox thing,
Yeah.
Big 10, Big 12, Big East. Like, come on. Every argument we made about you had 31 games to prove yourself worthy of the NCAA tournament plus a conference tournament applies here. Just go to the NIT. Like, it used to be the number 1 tournament. No one's going to watch this Fox thing. People at least know what the NIT is. You are further segmenting basketball where you don't need to.
Yeah, and as someone who has been a part of locker rooms where guys just want the season to be over, I think any coach who willingly would subject a team that isn't good enough for the NCAA tournament or good enough for the NIT to keep playing.
Because you're talking like seeds 10, 11, 12 in these conferences.
Yeah. Like if you're, I mean, there's just like, and there's just a time where if your season's gone the way it's gone, it's probably best for everyone to just call it. And, you know, do not, like, you don't want, you know, to force guys to keep playing. And it's just, you know, you miss out on the tournament. And that's just, and you're in a 3rd tier tournament that's, you know, all just TV ran and TV based. I mean, that sounds horrible. I could only imagine being a part of a locker room that's checked out. Like they know they've missed their ultimate goals. Like, well, we're going to go to Vegas. We gotta prep to play Boston College on Wednesday in Vegas. Like, that sounds
cool.
Sounds
thanks,
awful.
Coach.
Yeah, thanks.
For reference, if we take teams, let's just do so. Number 8, Michigan State made it in. It's pretty much the line of demarcation there. Seeds 9, 10, 11, and 12 last year in the Big Ten. Minnesota playing out the string if ever they were. Ohio State, slightly resurgent under Jake Diebler. Penn State, so mid at best, like definition of mid at best. Now, here's the thing. I would talk myself into them because Ace Baldwin, but besides the point. Yeah. And Maryland. No. Who did Maryland inspire last year?
No one.
Not a single soul.
I guess Derek Queen, because he still wound up coming. But I mean, he's balling. But that coach is not long for that job. That's a pretty good picture of how we don't need that. Nobody does. No one's asking for that either.
No one needs it, and no one wants it. So why are we doing it?
Money talks,
I guess. Jacob, thanks for making the drive. It was fun as always, man.
Of course, man. That was an absolute blast. I'm looking forward to my Southern accent and some social clips. But I appreciate you having me, man. Yep, appreciate you having me, Austin.
We'll do it again soon. We'll be up in Sioux Falls, the both of us. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter. Make sure you don't miss out on anything good there. We'll call it a show here. On the other side, Nick Sainert, Jay Foreman, Seward Scott from Concordia University. Class B state semifinal football. You won't want to miss it. Don't go anywhere.
The Rabbit Hole Bakery, located at 8th and Q in the Haymarket, is the ideal place for fresh breakfast items or desserts made daily. Cream puffs, cinnamon rolls, carrot cake, sweet potato pecan cookies, brownies, blondies. Do I need to keep going? What about bread pudding with homemade bourbon caramel sauce? Stop by the Rabbit Hole Bakery at 8th and Q in the Haymarket today to satisfy your cravings. And if you're looking for larger group orders, they do that too. Order